Thank you for watching this video. Please click on the like and subscribe buttons so that I can continue to make more videos like this.
The next page in our print is M1.1. However, I want to skip ahead to M2.1, Mechanical Schedules and Notes, because I believe once we know this information, page 1.1 will be easier to read. Now again, if you're skilled and experienced at reading blueprints, then page 1.1, it makes logical sense to have that first. I just believe that we need to have a little more of this information before we look at page M1.1, and that way we'll understand it better because we're beginners here. Basically, if we look at this, we've got some mechanical project notes up here. Most of these notes refer to the mechanical equipment, but there are some things that directly affect our electrical work. I want you to look at note W up here and open your prints, and you'll read, contractor to coordinate all final thermostat locations with owner and architect prior to mounting. Mount all wall-mounted thermostats at 48 to 54 inches above finished floor for disabled access compliance per UMC. Since you're going to be installing these thermostats as an electrician, at least the boxes for them, you need to know that dimension, and it's 48 inches to 54 inches above the finished floor. Note Y, just under it, mechanical contractor shall coordinate with the electrical contractor regarding space availability for recessed lighting and ductwork to avoid relocating ductwork at the mechanical contractor's expense. Now, we talked about this earlier with the reflected ceiling plan and how you don't want to have your conduit get in the way of some of the ductwork. So this is a note basically telling you guys to work together. Let's look at note EE. All work shall be located to avoid conflicts with other trades. And again, that's a little bit redundant. They just want to point out how important it is to work together. Over here, we have the ductwork symbols, and I want to take a little bit closer look at some of those because some of them will be important to us. So we're taking a closer look at some of the ductwork symbols. I want you to look at this one, T with a circle in it, that's a room thermostat. An S with a circle around it, room temperature sensor. This circle that's half black at the bottom, duct smoke detector. And these next three right here, fire damper, FD, fire smoke damper, FSD, and motor operated damper. Okay, these will be on the mechanical equipment and you won't install them, but each one of those needs some kind of electrical connection. It could be just a low voltage control wire, or it could be a regular 120 volt circuit which controls that motor operated damper, as in this one here. So whenever you see one of those symbols on the mechanical plan, you know that you are going to need to have some electrical work near that, so you need to be aware of that. So that covers the symbols that are really important for us. So now let's take a look at some of the abbreviations in the very top right corner of this page. So in the top right corner of page M2.1, which again is the mechanical schedules and notes, and we're looking at some abbreviations. Here we kind of talked about it, DSD, duct smoke detector, and that's one we're going to have to know about. That's going to be part of your fire alarm system as well. One here that says P, that's a pump. And also, let's go up here, HP heat pump unit, which will be a roof-mounted air conditioning and heating unit. And every time you have a pump, you need electricity to run that pump. Here's one, V, that's volts, so that means you have to have electricity. It could be a low voltage current or a higher voltage current, so you have to check on that. Here's one we talked about earlier, T-stat. If it says T-stat, thermostat, and of course we had that symbol, a circle with the letter T in it. That was a thermostat symbol. Read through the rest of the abbreviations there, and those are the most important ones that I pointed out. Now underneath that we see annotation symbols, and this is something we need to learn how to read, so we're going to drop down and take a closer look at those. At the symbols, we know this circle is a keyed note, and we know what to look for on the plans. Room number, very self-explanatory. It's the same symbol for room number we've been talking about. They're just using that on the mechanical prints. Now here's one here, a hexagon that's split in half. And the top part, it says hex symbol indicates new equipment number, refers to specific equipment, and the bottom half identified an equipment schedule. So in other words, this is the equipment schedule where you look, and this is the piece of equipment. And when we start working with those, we'll point some of those out. The triangle is a revision triangle. We've talked about that before. The circle with the line, again, detail number, detail symbol, and drawing where detail appears. In other words, this will be the page and the number and how this works. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, we're going to move more towards the bottom and center of the page and look at some other schedules here. Okay, so now we're looking on here at our packaged heat pumps unit schedule. And these are the heat pumps that are going to be on the roof for the heating and air conditioning. Now we have three different types. If you look at here, A, B, and C, and those are the symbols given. And it gives the manufacturer, which is Carrier, the model number. So there's three different model numbers because they're three different sizes. And you look at the size in tons, a 5-ton, a 4-ton, and a 3-ton. Now, this information going across deals with the mechanical, but if we get in about the middle, under these large words, heat pump, you'll see electrical data. And what I want to do now is focus in on that. So here we are here, electrical data, and we notice here FLA. Okay, what that stands for is full load ampacity. In other words, when that is running at full speed, the full load ampacity is 24.6 amps. And that was the 5-ton unit, the 4-ton unit at 18 amps, and the 3-ton unit at 15.9 amps. And of course that makes sense because the bigger one draws more current. Next to it we have MCA, and that's for maximum current ampacity. At startup there's a kind of a surge in the motor, and you get a little bit higher of a current draw till it starts running, and then it kind of, let's say, relaxes a little bit till it gets to its running speed. So that's what that stands for. Now here with volt and phase, it's 208 volts and 3-phase on all of these. So we know we're going to have a 3-phase motor running that, and that's very common on a unit like this. On any kind of industrial motor, it's very often going to be a 3-phase unit. Underneath that, we had the exhaust fan schedule, and I'm going to take a closer look at that right now. Okay, so we're down here at the exhaust fan schedule, and again, the exhaust fans are going to be in the bathrooms, the vent fans. And here we have the symbol EFA. The manufacturer is Green Heck. It gives a model number, and it gives some things about airflow. But again, over here, it gives us a motor, gives us 49 watts, but the volts, it's 120 volts single phase. It's just going to have one hot wire going to it to power it. Underneath it, let's look at note 3 here. It says control with separate switch by electrical. And we're going to get to that, and there's going to be a separate switch next to the light switch in the bathroom to turn that fan on and off. And we'll discuss that more when we get there. This actually concludes what we need to learn from page M2.1. So we're going to go back now to page M1.1 and take a closer look at that page now, and I think we'll understand it a lot better. Okay, so now we've backtracked to page M1.1, the mechanical floor plan. The scale is 1/4 inch is equal to 1 foot, just like on many of the plans we've been looking at. This, we see all the mechanical equipment and how it is installed in this build-out. Now, of course, we've talked about things like heat pumps and exhaust fans and all of that kind of stuff, fire dampers. We have to get electricity and current to those things, so this is why we need to look at that. We're going to focus our attention on this part of the drawing because it has quite a few things that we can point out. So let's take a look in that area right now. So we've moved up to the upper left-hand corner of the drawing, and again we're kind of over the restrooms and the reception and entry area here. Now I want to point out something we learned from the last page, page M2.1. If we look here, we have the circle that's split in half and the hexagon split in half, pointing to each of these two pieces of equipment. Now those are the exhaust fans in the bathroom. Both of these apply to each one of these pieces of equipment. So the circle and the hexagon both apply. Now if you remember the hexagon, the top half was the equipment, and EF stands for exhaust fan. And the bottom half is the schedule. So on Schedule A is where you find these exhaust fans. And again, since there's only one type of exhaust fan, that's going to be the only entry on that schedule. And we talked about that on the last page. Now this circle that's split in half to M2.2, that means you will find on page M2.2, detail 2, this exhaust fan. We talked about that page earlier, and we got a detail on one of the ducts that went in between the lights when we were on the page on the reflected ceiling plan. So when we get to that page, I'll point that out, this detail here. Now it says right here TYP2, typical 2. In other words, there are 2 of those, typical for both of these 2, and that's what that means there. Now another thing we learned from the page on our symbols, we have a circle here with a T in it, okay, right here. And remember, that stands for thermostat. Down here is this square here. It says HP. We know that's a heat pump, and it's heat pump A. Remember, there's an A, and a B, and a C. And this is a note 2 on the key notes. And it says mechanical contractor to install new unit on existing equipment curb. There's already set up on the ceiling a place to put a heat pump in, and this is the heat pump that goes there. It's going to be heat pump A. And again, remember we had that on the equipment schedule. It tells them which heat pump to put in there. Now at this point in time, I want you to go over the entire plan and find all of the thermostats, okay? So here's one right here. So pause the video. I want you to find the rest of the thermostats that are on this print. Okay, so we're back now and we're taking a full look at the sheet M1.1. How many thermostats did you find? There are 4 on this print. We showed you the first one right here. The second one is this circle with a T right here underneath this ductwork. The third one is up here in this front entry office right here. There's a T with a circle in it. The fourth one, okay, is right here. This T with a circle in it. So we have 4 thermostats. We have 4 rooftop units, so we have 4 thermostats. One to control each unit. So that should have been something pretty simple to look at. Okay, another thing I want to point out on the prints, if we look here in the storage room, right here, there's note 4 and there's a note 4 here. It says FSD next to each one of those, and that's a fire smoke damper. And if we go up to our key notes up here to note 4, it says fire smoke damper. See detail 9 M2.2 for more information. So that's where you can go and find more information on those. Again, something like that, you're going to have some an electrical installation to it, whether it's to power it or a control wire to read a signal or something. So, but again, you can look at the print here, and the main purpose of this mechanical floor plan is to get an idea of all of the equipment, and you can see that when you have to run power to it, what it's going to take for you to run power to it with your conduit. And also so that you don't have your work get in the way with the mechanical contractor's work. In other words, you coordinate your work together so it's a nice clean installation for everyone. Now what I'd like you to do at this time as well is to go to the heat pumps. There are 4 heat pumps, okay? Here, 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 and here. And I want you to look at these symbols, like we talked about this one earlier. This one is a heat pump B, and go to the mechanical pages and see what kind of information you can find on those. And you have the heat pump schedule at M2.2. We talked about that earlier. Just kind of go back and forth between these pages and find out the information on those heat pumps just to get in the practice of cross-referencing things and reading these prints. Because there's going to be times you're going to have to be able to maybe stand next to the mechanical contractor and talk about this installation, and you'll be looking at this set of prints and also the page next to it, M2.1. So you want to know what you're talking about, you want to know what he's talking about, and that way you can make sure that you're going to get the job done in the best way possible. In other words, you want to have that guy, the mechanical contractor, you want him to have confidence in you that you can do your job. And at the same time, you want to be able to have the confidence in yourself that you can do your job. So that's why I want you to navigate a little bit between these two pages and to just do some work on your own with that. So that concludes our look at sheet M1.1 for right now. So just pause the video yourself and flip between both of those pages for a bit. The next sheet in our lesson is M2.2 Mechanical Details. Now, of course, we already went over M2.1, so we jump now to M2.2. And let's point out some things here. Remember, we had this detail 4 up here, and of course this was a duct, and this was going in the grid ceiling between the lights, and we looked at that in the reflected ceiling plan. We've already looked at this detail. We talked about detail number 2 on the last page. Remember the exhaust fan in the bathroom? That's the detail there. That's where we had the circle and the hexagon next to each other. And we were given the detail with the circle to look on M2.2 on detail 2. And if you want to, you can go back to page M1.1 and look at that, and it will point you to go to M2.2 and detail 2 to look there. Another thing we talked about the fire and smoke dampers. So I want to go down here, fire smoke damper connection, detail 9, and let's take a closer look at this while we're on this page. So here we are in the bottom left corner of sheet M2.2, and it's detail 9, fire smoke damper connection detail. We talked about this on page M1.1 in the storage room. There were 2 fire smoke detectors. Let's look here. Note 1. It says, mechanical contractors shall furnish, install, and provide wiring to fire smoke damper to close damper upon detection of smoke. Mechanical contractors shall provide all necessary relays, contactors, power modules, etc. as necessary to provide complete operational system. Coordinate with electrical fire alarm contractor to verify voltage requirements, locations, etc. Basically, this is saying who has to provide the equipment. And what's nice about this is the architect kind of becomes a judge and says, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, and you provide this material, you provide this. And it kind of keeps arguments down on the job. Because I've seen it before, people argue about who's supposed to do what, and it's not pretty. Note 2. Electrical fire alarm contractor shall provide wiring if fire detection or alarm systems are provided for the building. The smoke detector shall be supervised by such systems. And here's where the crafts have to coordinate with each other and see who does what. Number 3, power relay provided by electrical contractors. So this means you're going to have to provide that power relay. Number 4, I want you to look at this. Note 4, remember this symbol we have here. And note 4, low flow duct type duct smoke detector mounted where shown. Installed and control wiring by mechanical contractor, power wiring by electrical and fire alarm contractor. So again, this is telling who is supposed to be doing this and who does what part of the work. But again, we have that symbol there, and it's the duct smoke detector. So here's a place, it's a small piece of equipment, but we have a lot of information on it. This is a good place for you to learn about things like that. That really concludes what we need to learn from page M2.2, so let's move on to the next sheet. Okay, the next sheet in our set of prints is M2.3 Mechanical Details. It's in the bottom corner off the page here. But I just wanted to focus up because it's only got one diagram here, and let's go straight to that just to save a little time. Basically, this is another look at that detail 9 we just looked at on the other page. But it gives some information on wiring this. Now, it's basic wiring, nothing too fancy if you know wiring, but I want to point some things out. Here, this has an N, which is a neutral, and it shows you got a neutral connection, and you got a hot. And it comes here, and this E, okay, points to it by electrical contractor, fire alarm contract, whoever. And this is a relay located at fire smoke damper. So this is a relay. It's in an open position there. So when it closes, circuit's going to go, and this is going to do its job. So without getting into a big discussion on how this operates in a motor control lesson, it's basically a simple wiring diagram here, and you can look at that and understand how this is going to work. Now, some units are much more complicated than this, and the control diagrams are much more complicated, but you would find them again in the mechanical drawings. I just want to point that out here. They gave us this sheet here, but that's all we need to look at for this page. Our next sheet is P1.1, and it's the plumbing floor plan. And again, the scale is 1/4 inch equals an inch. Now, there's really nothing on this page for us except this. If we look down here, remember it has a note 7 down here in this corner, and that says 1 inch hot and cold water. Okay, these are pipes down to EWH. EWH is electric water heater, and it says see electric water heater detail on drawing P2.1. So the next page is P2.1. Let's just take a quick look there because we're done with this page for our purposes. So we're at the next sheet, P2.1, and that's plumbing details. Now we can look up here. Here's the electric water heater diagram I mentioned earlier, and what we look at here, we see there's a recirculating pump, and what this does, these are being installed now where it keeps circulating the hot water, and it actually gives hot water on demand, and it saves water, and it saves electricity in heating hot water, and it's part of the energy management system. So this detail includes that, and we'll see that later on in the prints. I also want you to look at this cloud right here in this drawing. It says bond hot and cold water lines with a bonding jumper in compliance with NEC section 250-104 when using dielectric fittings. So that's part of the electric code. If they're using dielectric fittings, you need to know that and make sure that that part of the electrical work is done. So this is again a page we don't need to get a whole lot off of. So we're done with sheet P2.1 for our purposes.
Thank you for watching this video. Please click on the like and subscribe buttons so that I can continue to make more videos like this. If you find this video helpful, please consider donating using the PayPal link below. Thank you.